All right, so some basic ankle mobility work. I like to start with the foot glove. So basically, bare feet, my hand. I'm gonna walk my fingers in between my toes, kind of wiggle them in there. If you have toe socks, a lot of times it helps a little bit. But once it's in there, like this, I can take my ankle through big ranges of motion. I can go through inversion and eversion, pronation, supination. I can take myself through big ankle circles and go through dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, but very passive across the ankle. But I can really work to open up my foot and all the tissues around my foot. And it's nice because it's almost like someone else is working across your ankle, but you get to do it, so you don't have to pay for it. And you also know your limitations. You know what feels good and what doesn't feel good. But typically when I do this, I'll go through pronation, supination, inversion, eversion. And I'll go through some dorsiflexion, plantar flexion. And I'll go through just some big ankle circles. I like to do this. I'm going to switch sides. I like to do this when I wake up in the morning. I'll do it before I go to bed. I'll do it if I'm watching TV. I try and stay barefoot a lot so I can really around the house. I can do this whenever I want. But if I'm just hanging out, I like to open up my feet as much as I can because I want to have stable feet. I want to have mobile ankles for my squats. And a lot of the movements that I do that really involve good ankle mobility. If I don't have good ankle mobility, it's tough for me to hit the best positions possible. If I have pain across my ankles, it's tough to hit the best positions possible. So again, you can use both hands to open up your foot. And then big ankle circles, each direction. And this is all while my fingers are in between my toes. And then some dorsiflexion and some plantar flexion. You'll get some cracks out of your toes and stuff like that, some little adjustments. But again, one of my favorites. All right. Pointing your toes, sitting on the heels. Pointing my toes, sitting on my heels. I can pick up my knees. I can lean back. I can pick up my knees. I can lean back. I can pick up both knees. My goal is to be able to sit here and have this really be a comfortable place to sit on the ground as opposed to just be dying here. So we can modify this if this is challenging for you. Some pads, pillows. Point your toes. Throw some pillows or pads in there. And there, you can sit way easier. And again, ideally barefoot. Honestly, the saddle pose, if you're not barefoot, a lot of shoes can make it way more difficult just because they'll dig into your Achilles and stuff like that. So saddle pose variation. Saddle pose with toes tucked. Stretch out the bottoms of your feet. So really try and tuck your toes underneath. And then same idea, sit back. And I'll really try and lean back and drive things forward. I'm gonna try and drive my knees forward and really stress basically length across my toes and the bottom of my foot. Kind of hanging on for dear life here. Again, it's comfortable, but it's a nice stretch. But if you need to modify it, add some pillows, add some pads, make it a little bit easier. We have a basic calf stretch up against a wall. If you did the ankle strength stuff, similar to just the straight leg calf raise, but now we're going to try and push that angle a little bit more and lose inside of my feet, but they'll pop out on the other end, and then drive my heels towards the ground. And whatever, you could be up here and you get a nice stretch across the calf. I have pretty mobile ankles, so I'm going at a pretty big angle, and I'm really pushing my heels down into the ground, nice and hard. There's tons of equipment that can assist with this, but I'm trying to go no equipment, so it can be very basic, very simple. Get a nice calf stretch. One thing I like to do with my feet too is I'll slightly pigeon toe them, and I'll also slightly duck toe them just to play with different angles. And then same idea for a soleus stretch. Probably won't go quite as far, but you'll push your heels down and then bend your knees. And try and really drive those knees down towards the ground. And this is going to close up the ankles, so some good dorsiflexion. But also it's going to target soleus a little bit more. And if you're tight there, this can be a pretty good stretch. If you're not tight there, then it may be pretty mellow, but it's still a good range of motion to work on and play with. We'll go around, find those nooks and crannies. And then finally some elephant walks. I'm going to go over kind of like an ideal scenario of where you can be at with these, and then how to regress it and make it more applicable to someone who's maybe a little bit tighter. Roll over like you're doing a J curl, so you'll round out your back on this. That's totally fine. Start with your knees nice and bent, and then I'm just going to go one at a time, locking out one leg and then locking out the other. So my goal here is to get nice and straight on one leg, and the other leg is bent, and then get nice and straight on the other leg. Basically, it's just almost like I'm walking in place. And again, if you can get your palms to the ground, that's great. If you can't, then staying a little higher is fine, or finding a target in which you can round your back over towards, lean on, and then do the same idea. Bend one leg and straighten the other leg, almost like you're walking in place. But as you do open up on this, you'll find yourself to have the ability to go palms flat to the ground and do this fairly comfortably, locking out one leg as you bend the other and holding each position for 1, 2, maybe 3 seconds. So some ankle mobility in a nutshell, no real equipment needed. I grabbed a box, but it could be something, just anything that's gonna be about 1 foot to 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet high, something maybe higher if you're a little bit tighter. But a nice way to open up ankles and develop some more function. And then there's the ankle strength video you can look at as well. There'll be, again, no equipment that you can play with to develop some good strength along with this mobility.